And welcome into the Boardroom podcast. I am Ward 6 Alderman Ben Piper.
I'm Ward 4 Alderman Chad Wicker.
Did we get Chris Stapleton to do that song?
Man,
Dude,
whoever wrote that song and produced that song, really sharp.
Man,
real sharp.
That is really, it's coming in real clear.
I don't know, Ben, if you're aware, but I think Monday night there was an issue with the train. The train, I think, was broken down there on the tracks for a little while, for about an hour, and there were some people tied up and who were waiting on a train for sure.
They truly were. I saw that there was some, I had a buddy of mine that was trying to get his kids to ball practice and was like, what is going on here? And I said, man, I don't know, but we will find out. So a broken down train is never a good thing in the middle of a small town.
He was stuck on the Commerce there for, I think I was told, about an hour. We had one kid on my baseball team that was late to the first game because he was stuck at the baseball track there. So,
and people may not realize it, but the city does not have any control over the train schedule.
I thought that fell in Ward 6 and they had all the control over the train.
Not Ward 6. Not Ward 6. It might be Ward 3. I think we passed, or 5. I don't think it's any of us.
I think that's actually
who's
the road. I think it would be Mr. Andrews.
Okay.
Ward, which would be Ward 2.
But what is the deal with the? It's just that's the schedule they run on, and sometimes they break down.
Yeah, I think they service. My understanding is they service newlyweds there in Horn Lake, and then Valvoline and Hernando is really the only ones that use that. And I guess they decide to come, whenever they want to. And I know
if you like food and you like oil,
yeah,
you're in trouble. The train's gonna keep running.
I think there's also an issue with them, and I'm not. My father-in-law is going to kill me because I don't know what it's called, but I think they stack the cars in like a waiting area in Hernando for the newlywed station. So they're picking up cars
like an intermodal facility kind of situation.
Taking it to, they call it something. They put them in the, I think it's called a spur. They put them in the spur there, and they take them to newlyweds, fill them up, and then they go back south with them.
Why is your father-in-law going to be mad about that?
He works for CN. He's an engineer, so he knows all about that. He's going to kill me because I don't know all the lingo, man.
Is that Illinois Central?
It used to be, yeah.
It used to be Illinois
now
Central.
It's called Canadian National. He works out of the Jackson, Mississippi yard. So.
Well, thanks for listening.
The Boardroom podcast.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, absolutely. All of our railroad people, we appreciate you listening to us and all the hard work you do. But
just kind of update on this episode. We're going to have here in just a second. We're going to update or recap the meeting from last night, the September 19th Board of Alderman meeting, and then we'll reach out to our guest. And I believe I'm right. The 65th governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, is going to be our guest today.
I feel like it's a pretty big guest.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big guest.
Yeah.
The governor of Mississippi, essentially the CEO of the
state of
Mississippi, the entire government for the state of Mississippi. So
yeah, we sit down with him for about 20, 25 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, he was really gracious with his time. He's obviously on the campaign trail, so every minute is.
He was up campaigning in Olive Branch, and I think did a luncheon or something in South Haven.
Yeah, I think at a groundbreaking in Olive Branch, and
ribbon cutting or something.
He was kind enough to squeeze our podcast in. We interviewed him at Olive Branch City Hall.
That's right.
In the it was
Jay Nichols is their communications director.
Jay's office. So appreciate Jay for letting us do that recording there. So we'll have Tate Reeves on later.
We got to put some pictures. I think there's some pictures floating around somewhere. We got to post some of those.
Yeah, we've got pictures of us with Tate Reeves as he kind of shared a little bit about his background, also some of his accomplishments that he's had as governor of Mississippi as he's running for his second term, facing Democrat Brandon Presley.
And something that I didn't realize until I was starting to look into him to ask him some questions. He's been in state government since 2000. He got elected first in 2003, so over 20 years now. Right at 20 years, he's been in state government at some level of it. So.
That's something I think people have noticed that a lot is that there's been this kind of slow climb, right? For Tate Reeves from treasurer then to lieutenant governor and now to governor. So it's one of those weird politics is one of those weird places where you don't have.
What's next for you?
Right now I'm just focused on Ward 6. And getting some streets paved.
If that's
here.
not a politician's answer, I've never heard.
We're going to be talking about some streets getting paved later.
Better watch out.
Oh my gosh, don't say that. Don't get that started. But yeah, it's politics is one of those weird places where it's not like any other position or any other situation where you apply for a job essentially as the CEO of government in Mississippi. It's not like you're the governor of a smaller state and then they give you the job in a bigger state. You know what I mean? You have to kind of there's no experience, basically. There's no the experience is every day when you go to work. So that is the challenge of any highly elected position like that. But
yeah, he's the leader of our state. He lives in the governor's mansion, and he's eating and breathing it every day. Trying to make Mississippi better is what I think essentially what he says. And so
I wonder if they give you is there like a keypad to get in the front door? Is there some kind of that was a question I wanted to ask him, but I thought he would think I was crazy. Like I'd be like, is there like a special key they give you as the governor to get in the front door of the governor's mansion? Is it like a fingerprint or an eye scan, like a movie?
I'm not sure he's as like the president where he gets driven around all the time, but I bet he don't drive a whole lot.
I would still want to drive. I don't trust other people driving me now. I don't even.
I've rode with you. I don't know if we trust you driving.
Okay. All right.
Now,
so
one thing I got to say, my son's going to. So you have a son named Reeves.
Yep.
I have a son named Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
We interviewed Tate Reeves, and I understand you named your son after Tate Reeves.
That's not accurate.
Huh?
That's a fable.
Oh,
that's a fairy tale.
Okay. All right.
That is not true.
Let's jump into it, Ben. What do you want to talk about first? I got the agenda. You want to just jump to the streets? I know you don't ever try to stay in order, so you want to jump into the streets first?
Well, I go in terms of like what people want to hear most.
Okay.
So that way, if it gets boring, they can fast forward to Tate Reeves, I guess. But so probably the biggest news is we looked at a list of streets that we would like to try to get paved. Before the end of the year, there's about 19 streets on here. We're not going to list them all off because that would be incredibly boring. But there's 4 of these projects were pretty large size that were taken off to push on to the spring or maybe next summer, depending on what bids come back at. But a lot of neighborhood streets on here. We'll have that list published. But another thing that we wanted to point out is just a great partnership with DeSoto County Schools, partnering with the city to get Kirkendall Sports Fitness Park, that parking lot, getting that paved. I'm hoping that we can get it paved, in the next 30 days. I don't know if that's possible or not. They're going to try. They're going to try to hurry to get that done because we got the homecoming parade coming up, and that parking lot will be used significantly. But DeSoto County Schools, appreciate them splitting that cost with us. The cost of paving that parking lot is about $27,000, so $13,500 for each one. But some of the ones that you may notice here. Center Street, I know right there where Hernando Baptist is, getting that street paved. That's about $46,000. That's one of the ones that has kind of gotten chewed up over time. For example, that's one of the ones that's on there. But we'll have that entire list posted. Excuse me. The entire paving budget for the city is over $3 million this year.
3.3.
3.3. A portion of that's going to be used.
$800,000.
Mm-hmm. For what?
Renaissance Park.
Yeah.
They're gonna. We got a grant with the Mississippi Wildlife and Fisheries, I think commission or group or whatever they're called.
Yep.
And we're gonna put some additional trails in there, and also some paving to get us essentially, if you're familiar with that park, to that ditch. So that'd be more. You have more walkability there. You have it'd be easier to drive. There'll be, instead of driving back there on the gravel, you'll have a paved road now. And our portion of that's $800,000. I think it's a total. I want to say $3 million, $2.9 million something project maybe. I can't remember.
So a portion of that paving budget will be used for matching that grant.
Yes.
So to get a road built further back into Renaissance Park. And
essentially, yeah.
And we're still calling it Wicker Boulevard, right? Maybe.
I always take the position you shouldn't name things after somebody who's still alive. You wait till they pass away before you name stuff after them.
It's a good policy.
But,
it's a good policy.
So just seriously, we have about $2.5 million to kind of use on some discretionary paving, and I think essentially what the mayor did was each alderman kind of submitted a list, and it seems like most of what everybody submitted is getting done. So we still have this list that we were presented last night is only about a $1.4 million worth of work, and so that we still have over $1 million worth of work that we're going to do. I know my list is not included in this. The biggest thing on my list, just so to let my constituents know, we're going to try to get Terra Drive done. So that's I don't think that's ever been paved since that subdivision's been built there. So there's some pretty rough spots there. We're going to try to get that done. It's probably the biggest one, but there are some other smaller ones that once we get the full list, we will post on our website. I'm sure the city will put it out as well. So,
and one of the biggest things you can look at here, when we talk about some of these bigger items that are on here, Memphis Street, for example, from Highway 51 to the Laurelwood subdivision, $290,000. That's basically a mile of roadway.
That's needed badly.
It's needed badly. There's commercial frontage there. There's neighborhoods. It's just something that needs to be done. And it honestly, the road was probably a little chewed up as neighborhoods have been developed back in there. And just needs to be.
I'm not trying to throw other previous boards on the bus or whatever. They did the best they could, but for several years there was just simply no paving done in our city. So we're really playing catch up, and that's why we're investing so much. This is record amount of money every year we've put into paving. So keep getting there, and hopefully we get to a point where we can start maintaining what we have instead of just catching up to what needs to be done.
And you'll see on. So when you're looking at this list, if you're listening to us, look at the list on social media or whatever. Hillshire Drive, for example, in Notting Hill is about 1,400 feet, $70,000. And then Fairway Oaks Cove is 1,500 square feet at $75,000. So a difference of 100 feet is $5,000 in terms of milling and paving. So hopefully if people can understand that, it's very expensive to get this stuff done. The cost of paving has not gone down. Oil and gas prices are still high, and this is what it is. But it's important for people to note when you're looking at this list, number 1, number 2, number 4, and number 7, if you're looking at this list, those will be in the next calendar year, so in 2024, within this budget year, but in the next calendar year. The rest of them we're trying to bid together to get the best asphalt price possible and to try to get them moving forward as quickly as possible. So 15 of these 19 roads, we'll try to get those paved and taken care of here in the next couple months.
And Ben, some people may wonder why we were so adamant about getting a rainy day fund or contingency fund built up. And the reason why is now we're able to do some of these paving projects in the fall. Mm-hmm. Before the plants close, because we have the money in the bank to do it. In prior years, because the way the money fell, they didn't start getting their tax money until January, so they would sometimes have to borrow money from the water fund or whatever to kind of make the payroll till January, February. And now, since we have $1 million in our surplus account, we're able to get these done, and so we'll probably be able to complete a lot of work this year just simply because of that, being a good with the tax dollars.
All right, so I think that's enough on street paving. I think everybody's probably good on street paving now. But
Reedy Drive,
what else do we have? Reedy Drive is not on the list. Oh, okay. Didn't make it. Doc mentioned it as one that we need to get paved. So I think that Joe Frank was getting him an update on that one, but. What else did we talk about? We talked about the YMCA a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be happy to talk about that.
Sure.
One thing we did first we got to give a shout out to Sam Trotter and Fletcher Short, the gentleman from two gentlemen from Hernando Elementary that came over and did the Pledge of Allegiance.
Awesome job, guys.
So they did a great job on that. But in the consent agenda, there was one item about forgiving some permit fees associated with the new YMCA. So the people that don't know, what's that, the development up there in South in your area there?
Delta Landing.
Across from the new high school building, they have donated some land to the YMCA to build a YMCA. Now, my understanding, the YMCA is trying to raise money to fund that, and there's no immediate plans to build it. But there has been a pledge by the Maddox Foundation to match up to $7.5 million at some point. So I think at some point, I think it's safe to say Hernando will get a YMCA at that location. And what they want to do is kind of a quid pro quo, and that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it a little more, is that the Maddox Foundation later on the agenda is essentially going to fix Conger Park for us for no charge. In exchange, if we forgive the fees here for the YMCA. And I just wanted to, I took that out and tabled it and asked our attorney to take a look at that and make sure that we're on the up and up and legal. Not that I'm against the YMCA or against the Maddox Foundation. I just felt like we need to make sure everything's square and we're doing everything to the letter of the law and not get ourselves in any trouble. So,
and the city, in my opinion, well, I would say that everybody within the board has different levels of involvement with the YMCA and their fundraising efforts and everything else. There are, some aldermen who have had no interaction at all.
Are you pointing the finger at me?
No. I'm just saying that everybody has different levels of involvement with it. So there's folks who've said the city's really pushing hard for a YMCA. Well, that's partially true. There's some people that would like that, and then there's other people who are just kind of letting market forces do what they need to do. I'm more on that side of, look, if you are capable of raising $13-14 million and you have a capital campaign that does that, then if you want to spend that money in Hernando, that's fantastic. Just like it would with any church or any other nonprofit organization. If you're able to raise the money and you're able to purchase the land or get the land donated, then by all means, as America, build it, make it happen. But the government being involved necessarily with recruiting or trying to bring in a certain organization is not, to me, it's not really necessarily a function of government.
I mean, what I've said is I kind of have an issue with public funds going to a private business. I know they're a nonprofit. I think the city of Memphis donated money to them when they built the YMCA in Whitehaven there, but Olive Branch didn't give any money to theirs when they when they built there. I know they've approached the county, the school district, and I think the city of Hernando, and they've all come back empty-handed. So I think they're working with state, maybe try to get some money from the state. But
in my opinion, it's a complete waiver of all of the fees.
Well, another issue too, Ben, is we don't know what the fees are because we haven't seen the final plans. I mean, it could be,
and the fees could change over time because the fee schedule can change based on the rate of labor and some of these other things. But that's one of my things that I had a question about, and I asked our planning director to get together for me is how many labor hours are people going to accumulate in the course of like doing the site inspection or whatever else is done, because you certainly want to get reimbursed for that at the very least. So there's still some questions there. Certainly we have to talk with our attorney first. That's number one thing.
No rush. I just want to make sure it's legal to do that, and if it is, then we'll start talking about some of the other issues. Do we forgive the whole amount? Do we forgive, just so the city doesn't lose any money or whatever that is? And I think I think the Maddox Foundation is open to work with the city. They've been great to work with in the past on several projects. And also, while I'm thinking about it, I believe September 30th they have the
Noah's Gift 5K.
Noah's Gift 5K, which is a great. I've done that event in the past. I'm going to be out of town, so I'm not going to do it. We're going camping, so I'm not going to be in town that morning.
Could like virtually run. That's always what I do.
I ran 5 miles a day, Ben.
Already?
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
And while I'm thinking about it, this guy went to the gym with me for 2 weeks and I hadn't been seeing him since. Are you waiting for the YMCA to get built? Is that what you're waiting on?
I think it was more than 2 weeks. I think anybody that goes to the gym will attest to that. Two, got to get back in there.
Okay.
Got to get back in there.
Going this afternoon?
I'm going to have to go a different time of day, though.
Okay.
I saw this thing this morning that if you're trying to lose weight, you need to work out between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. So that's when I'm gonna try to get in there, drop the kids off, and go, throw some weight around, do a little walking. I'm not a runner. I'm done with running. If you see me running, run with me because there's something bad happening behind me.
All right, so let's jump into the next thing I think really of importance to talk about is we declared October 2023 as Down Syndrome Awareness Month. That's always a cool
that's a great thing.
A cool thing. I think a lot of people do I think it's the blue lights or whatever, I think on their porch or whatever. Isn't that October?
I think that's for autism.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know though. I feel like every month
I can't remember. I'm sorry if I misspoke there. I thought that was the same deal.
I can't remember. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure on it. We might need to Google that one. We need a researcher.
Yeah. We need to hire some more people. Making too much money to hire more people.
Yeah, we do. We had a guy in here earlier.
He ran off. It was time to go to work. He ran off.
I guess so.
We approved the final payment for the renovation at Fire Station 1. And just so people know, the plan there is to station the 3rd ambulance there And so that is ready for the third ambulance that we're going to purchase this year. And so hopefully we'll get all that up and running in the next, probably next 9 to a year. We'll have the ambulance
9 to 12
there.
months. Yeah,
We'll have the ambulance there. We already talked about the deal from the Maddox Foundation. Do you want to talk about the two planning things we discussed? I think they were pretty straightforward builds.
They're just final plat approvals to kind of to get those, another phase of Winningham Estates moving forward, and another phase of Jefferson Estates, moving forward there, and that Winningham neighborhood's coming along, and there's been some drainage concerns there that the city has had to rectify and whatnot, and the developer, I guess it's Legacy Homes, has been dealing with that, and they've been good to work with there, and have been willing to do what the city asks. So
Sure.
Jefferson State, same thing.
Yeah. Anything else? Have we ever talked about Hernando West's special tax assessment on here? I don't know.
We've touched on it some, but yeah, that's the essentially the city took out. The prior board took out what's called a cap loan.
Yeah.
Right. Cap loan was meant to pay for the sewer to be extended to Hernando West for development, and then a special assessment tax is going to be levied against all of the lots within Hernando West to repay the loan. And that's the bare bones of it. So if people understand that as the properties are sold, they're assessed for a special tax just in that area to repay a loan to have sewer extended to all those homes, commercial businesses, everything else is planned for Hernando West.
I think there's 2 or 3 different sections that are sitting on just ready to go. I think it's just waiting on financing, but so essentially the property owner will pay that money back to. I think we got that through the state. We borrowed money through a state program, so they would pay money back to the state by via their tax bill. And so whoever owns that property, I think right now Mr. Brown, Bill Brown owns that property.
Right.
And so his taxes bill went up last night when we approved the final deal. And so like you said, as he develops and plats that and rezones that property, the landowner then will pay a little more on their property tax until that bill's paid off.
Basically, there was a public hearing to finalize his tax bill and all the details with it. The horse is out of the barn.
He's the only one that owns the property right now, so there's nobody else at the hearing but him. So there's no. So
it was already something that it was just finalized more or less.
So and he put up I think he put up a year's worth of the payment and all several different things he mentioned. So we're good to go on that. Really. We can talk about the McInville sidewalk just a little bit. There eventually will be a sidewalk from Walgreens to just south of that south entrance of the school, Hernando High School. So just past the Magnolia Apartments. So whatever the kids can walk to McInville or walk to Walgreens
to Commerce
at some point, I don't know if it's the school's responsible or the city or whatever. We need to if we're going to do that, we need to put sidewalk on from the other side up to Dilworth. And then I believe is Compelled Church putting some sidewalk up to Dilworth on the other side.
They are on like the middle school side of Dilworth. There is some sidewalk going in there as part of the subdivision regulations that's required. There's still 5 acres of land at McInville and Dilworth that has not been sold or developed that would complete that sidewalk from where Compell's property ends to McInville. So that's why there's just like a sidewalk just kind of in the middle of nowhere right there.
Sure. All right. I think that's about it, Ben. You got anything? How's soccer season?
Soccer season's going good. We got 3 games left in 12U and 2 games left in 6U. So we're staying busy with that.
Someone said there's a video floating around of a cartwheel or something.
Yeah. So I did I kind of made a wager.
I call it a half wheel. What I saw was not a full cartwheel.
It was more of like a round off, if you're familiar with that. And I'm round, and I'm a little off, so round off, it makes sense. But yeah, my team, I told them they weren't really being very aggressive. They weren't really scoring a lot of goals. We were scoring 1 goal, 2 goals, whatever. Playing really good defensive soccer, whatever else. And I said, listen, we've got to get more aggressive, girls. We got to start scoring some goals here. And I was like, listen, if y'all win by 3 goals or more, I'll do a cartwheel after the game. And they thought that was hilarious, right? next thing you know, they're just pouring it in. Team won 5-2, and we made it happen. So
5-2, man, it's strong.
Strong. They played really well, and the other team, we have a really, really balanced league in 12U girls. There are a lot of really talented girls in there, and I'm sure some of them are going to head on to competitive or playing middle school or high school or whatever else.
Does Miss Jeffries, does she have a team there? Blair? Okay, her kids are a little older now.
Yeah, I get to avoid playing her. She's a soccer mastermind. She'd be on the other foot there. She'd be the one doing the cartwheels after the game. She was coaching against me. No doubt about that. She's a good one. But
we got the.
You got baseball starting?
Baseball started. We had our first game Monday, and we didn't show up. We still had to get a little rust. We got to get the rust off. We're playing 6U this year, so it's basically 3 strikes and you're out. And I'm the pitcher, and I had a pretty low ERA. Had a lot of strikeouts. Yeah.
Like Greg Maddox.
Yeah. Anytime you play 5 innings and 6 U's, a lot of people getting out.
Yeah. We also had Hernando High School won its second football game this fall. Yes. They blanked Pahelia 52-0. Just a huge win.
I was on my old stopping grounds out there running on the field with the Haifa kids. Man, bringing back some memories.
You had
give me some shoulder pads.
There you go. They had some of the I think you had some of the freshmen come in later in the game and complete some passes and get some touchdowns in there. So Coach McCann, congrats on win number 2. They got Center Hill coming up, and then they get into district play. So. A lot going on with Hernando sports right now.
Do we want to talk about the Jumbotron project at all? Is that top secret or?
Man, it's still really early. It's still a lot of discussion going on there with the new high school, the new football field, kind of what that stadium's going to look like, what kind of amenities it's going to have. So a lot of discussion still going on there, but. The volleyball team is continuing to do well.
I think they beat Oxford last night, right?
I believe that's right. Just clicking right along there. And
soccer starting up. We played in a soccer tournament the other day.
Yep. That's right.
A golf tournament, a little fundraiser for them. So.
And basketball's right around the corner. So, folks, it's that time of year. It starts getting a little crisp in the morning. Get your pullovers out and be ready to go. But
it's perfect running weather right now, man. You got to get out there and run in the mornings.
I'm gonna walk. That's all I'm doing.
Well, we'll end it there, and we'll get ready for our guest, the 65th governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves.
And we're now joined here on the Boardroom podcast with Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves. Really an honor. Think about it. This our podcast is still fairly new. We're in our second season here, and we have the CEO of the state joining us here, Chad. It's pretty awesome. But Governor Reeves has served the state for nearly 20 years. Was elected as a state treasurer. Lieutenant governor for 2 terms, treasurer for 2 terms, and is now running for his second term as governor here in the state as a Republican, of course. Everyone knows that. But Governor Reeves, thank you for joining us here today.
Well, what a pleasure it is for me to be on.
Absolutely. So, of course, we've talked about the public service and the offices that you've held. But one thing I bet people won't know, you and Chad share something in common. You are both athletes from back in the day. So and played a little basketball back in the day, right?
Well, my college basketball coach was John Stroud from up here in North Mississippi. He was an Ole Miss great, obviously. He would probably argue that I wasn't even an athlete back then, but I will tell you I'm definitely not an athlete right this moment. Having been on the campaign trail for the last 4 or 5 months full time, it's kept me busy. But look, I love sports. I think I'll never forget during the pandemic, I was the first governor to say that I don't know about everywhere else, but we're going to play college football in Mississippi. And because I think sports are important. I think they're important in young people's lives. I think they're important in collegiate kids' lives because it gives you a purpose and something to focus on and a recognition that in life, everybody doesn't get a competition trophy or a participation trophy. There are winners and losers, and the winners usually are the ones that work the hardest, and the ones who are not as successful are the ones who don't. And so I think the lessons learned of teamwork, et cetera, are very important. But yeah, it's my athletic days are way behind me.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your background. What led you to decide for, hey, it's time to run for treasurer. It's time to, eventually work your way up to being, the top elected official in the state?
Well, I'll be honest. I never had any idea that I would run for anything but treasurer. That first time, I was a fairly young guy. My background was in economics and finance. I was in the investing business, managing money for folks, and really at that time, if you go back to 2003, Haley Barbour was running for governor against the incumbent Ronnie Musgrove, and the treasurer nominee for the Democrats was a guy named Gary Anderson. And Gary was then Governor Musgrove's head of the Department of Finance Administration, and had certainly a background where he should have been capable of doing the job. Mississippi was in the worst financial shape we'd ever been in. We had a budget hole of $720 million, and that was on a $3.6 billion budget. You guys are in city government. You understand, just whatever the size of your budget is, just think being in a 20% or 25% shortfall, and that's where Mississippi was. And so I saw that Haley was running. I never met him when I qualified to run, but I knew that he probably needed a wingman that was a conservative, first of all, a fiscal conservative, but also that understood, hey, if we set towards a path, we can't fix this overnight, but if we set towards a path to fiscal sustainability, that's what will be best for our constituents. That's what will make Mississippi thrive. And it's kind of fun to look back and think about those times, because I was really singularly focused. But as I think about where we are today, the best financial shape we've ever been in.
That's right.
The best fiscal shape we've ever been in. It shows that conservative leadership works, and I think that's something that I'm really proud of, is that we were able to not only bring a wherewithal and a know-how, but also be able to convince other elected leaders across the state that this was really important. And because of that, that's why we are able to do some of the investments in infrastructure and education that we're able to do now.
Talking about education, I think you're a product of Florence Public Schools. Is that correct? And the third grade reading gate was a huge thing. You want to talk a little about your achievements in education over the last term, and even when you're lieutenant governor?
Well, I will tell you, it is the greatest accomplishment in the last 25 years in Mississippi, and you could argue from a public policy standpoint, I would argue that the greatest accomplishment in the conservative movement in America has been the overturning of Roe v. Wade,
yes,
and the protections of life. But the greatest policy accomplishment and just absolute movement has been what's happened in public education in Mississippi. I'm a graduate of Florence High School, go Eagles. But I had heard my whole life that Mississippi was last in education. Mississippi's 50th in education, and I never believed it, because I got such a good education there in South Rankin County schools, much like DeSoto.
Sure.
We had great teachers. But there were certainly, when the other side was in charge, there were statistics that one could look at and say, okay, well, maybe we are last. Well, what I'll tell you today is that Mississippi is last no more. In fact, if you look at fourth grade reading, and by the way, this is all because of conservative policy that we've enacted. And again, yet another data point that conservative policy works. And so we enacted a legislative reform package when I was lieutenant governor in 2012 and 2013. And the end result is that 10 years ago, Mississippi's high school graduation rate was 72.5%. Last year, it was 88.9%. That means there are 3,000 to 4,000 kids every single year in Mississippi that are getting a high school degree that 10 years ago would not have. Our fourth grade reading results, 10 years ago, we were 49th in the nation. Last year, we were 21st in the nation.
I think you call that the Mississippi Miracle, right?
Well, that was what the New York Times called it. I was reading the New York Times, and they called it the Mississippi Miracle, and I joked that I damn near choked on my catfish. I mean, literally. Forgive me for saying that, but it's true. I was like, oh, my goodness. But then, so that's fourth grade reading. Fourth grade math, we were able to, we went from 50th 10 years ago to 23rd in the nation. And the wonderful thing about these improvements is they are not limited to some kids in some schools. So while the kids in our better schools are doing better, all of our kids are doing better. You look at African-American students, for example. 10 years ago, African-American students in Mississippi, when compared to their peers in the other 49 states, scored 45th best in fourth grade reading. Last year, they were 5th best in America. Wow. These results truly are miraculous, and it's going to set up a whole generation of kids for a totally different set of opportunities in the future. And I'm pretty daggone proud of it, and I hope everyone else is too, because I think success begets success.
That's right. Well, and one thing Ben and I have talked about is the Republicans have only been in charge of the legislature for about a decade now, 10 years, and look what we've been able to accomplish. And just think 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we continue to have conservative leadership in the legislature.
Well, since Reconstruction to again, literally, like you said, to January of 2012, the other side had the levers of power in state government, and the last 10 years we have made tremendous progress. And look, I'll be the first to admit we hadn't fixed everything.
Sure.
I've told people along the campaign trail that, look, we've made a lot of progress in a lot of areas, but we got more work to do, and that's exactly the way I approach it, and we get up every day focused on doing that, and we'll continue to do so. And so
we have talented, smart kids they're going through the public education system here in Mississippi and the private education system as well. We talked to Auditor Shad White about the brain drain report and some of those things as well with talent leaving the state. But I feel like one thing that has been very positive is economic development here in the state of Mississippi, especially. I mean, I feel like you're up here, once a quarter for a groundbreaking for a huge, a company that's either locating here or expanding here or something like that. So, as far as economic development goes, you have these, these powerhouses. In Mississippi, of course, we consider DeSoto County to be one of those.
No doubt, DeSoto County is a leader in economic growth in the state of Mississippi. It's a leader in economic development in the state of Mississippi, and we have had some real success. If you go back to the 10 years before I became governor, Mississippi averaged about $900 million a year in new capital expenditures. Yeah. We announced over $6 billion in new projects in 2022 alone. Wow. We're going to have a great 2023 as well. And so, but what I tell everyone is we've really focused on it in my administration, and I'm proud of our team. But at the end of the day, it's a joint effort between cities and counties and the state. But more importantly, it's all about our people, because what we showed during the pandemic is that our people showed up to work and they showed out, and we kept our state open for business. And there were CEOs all around the country and all around the globe that said, hey, I'd like someone like those folks from Mississippi working for me. And so we're getting a lot of opportunities because of that. And we do have great places like right here in DeSoto County to not only invest capital, not only create jobs, but actually raise a family, and great schools where kids can go. And we've got some pockets of that. You talk about the brain drain. It's certainly something we have to continue to battle. I would submit to you it's not as it's like everything else in government. When from the outside looking in, it seems pretty simple, right? Just snap your fingers and fix it. But the brain drain is complicated. It's real. It does happen. And it really happens with a lot of our talented young people who want to live in metropolitan areas. And so I tell everyone, the kids that are graduating from our colleges and moving out of state, they're not going to rural Kentucky or rural Tennessee. Yeah. They're going to Nashville, Dallas, Atlanta. And so when we think about that, I think, and the way I describe it is a lot of them do not want to ride a car to work. They want to ride an elevator to work. That's right. And they want to be able to do what they want to do at night and walk back to their downtown place. And so we've got to do a better job of working towards that. Some of our communities is one of the things I love to see in DeSoto County, whether it's in Hernando or Olive Branch or South Haven, but the developments that are redeveloping downtown areas, yes, I think are going to help. It's not unique to here. I mean, you can go to Corinth, you can go to New Albany, you can go to certainly Meridian and Vicksburg in central Mississippi, Brookhaven, and Hattiesburg, and of course all the college towns, Oxford, Starkville, and Hattiesburg have a vibrant redevelopment. One of our challenges is that we've got work to do in the city of Jackson. It should be the one area that is competing with the larger municipalities, and it's the reason that I've been a proponent of making sure that we invest in state law enforcement there in the city, because Capitol Police is it's hugely important, because we've got to make sure that we protect the investments that we already have. But I say all that to say we've got more work to do, but I also want everyone to understand that, the 2020 census came out, and the census basically said that Mississippi's population from 2010 to 2020 was flat. And then they about 120 days later came out and said, here's our corrected report. And in the corrected report, they said that Mississippi was the third most undercounted state in the nation, and that we really grew by 4.37% in population. So we really saw about 125,000 new people grow into the state. Now, we've had huge population movements. There's been a whole lot of people, and I'm sure you know some of them, that lived in the North Delta, maybe that live in DeSoto County now, or they live in Oxford now. There's been a whole lot of people in the South Delta that maybe live in Madison or live in Rankin County now. So there's been some population movement, but we have seen population growth. And I will tell you, with all of these new businesses coming into to this area, the people are going to follow, because people follow good jobs. People who want to work, and those are the kind of people you want in your state. The people who want to work and want to have a good job and have good skills, they're going to find those jobs, and that's good. And because we find ourselves in a spot now, as you all know, that for the 5th consecutive month in July, we had the lowest unemployment rate in state history, and that's, again, it's a credit to our job creators, and it's a credit to the economy here in our state.
Can we transition to infrastructure for just a second? I think back in February you announced a $125 million plan for I-55. Could you talk about your commitment to improving the infrastructure in DeSoto County? And that's a thing that's very popular with our listeners. So if you could imagine why.
I am 100% supportive of the widening of I-55 to 6 lanes all the way to Hernando. And quite frankly, I'm for eventually seeing it widened all the way to Batesville, because I really do believe with the outward growth that's happening in Oxford, the outward growth that's happening in Batesville. I was at Northwest Community College for the football game last night. The outward growth that's happening in Senatobia, I really think you're probably going, if we do this right, that we're going to see the kind of capital investment up and down I-55, new advanced manufacturers, because we got great places to live, we got great people to fill those jobs, and we just got to keep up with the infrastructure. We've got a history, and certainly the project that I proposed, it would have been nice had it been done 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and should have been. And so we don't need to wait until we absolutely are behind the 8 ball. We need to start investing in that infrastructure now. I proposed that we got a significant allocation from the legislature to do it, and but again, we got to keep pushing and keep pushing, because I believe
we got $25 million this year, I think, to start getting right-of-ways and do the engineering, and hopefully we can keep, obviously you're committed to it, so I think the Lieutenant Governor, when he was here, he said he's committed to it, so let's just get it done.
I am 1,000% committed to it, and because it's the right thing to do, because we do need, because look, here's the reality. You look at, DeSoto County is an absolute gem, but we're seeing significant capital investments in Marshall County and in Tate County. And Marshall County, a big part of that is because I-269 is open. And so you got people who live in Hernando, and they can be in a job in North Marshall County in a very short period of time. And so it's that infrastructure is critical. There's other infrastructure projects that we want to continue to work on, but certainly the widening of I-55 to south of the Hernando exit is a critical piece of that.
So when you you wake up every morning, a day in the life of the governor, not necessarily on campaign trail, right? Like, what is it like? Like, because you're waking up in the governor's mansion, right? Is that where y'all are at all the time? Like, is there any? What is that like exactly for folks that?
Well, it's somewhat surreal, but like everyone else, I wake up and either my 11-year-old or my 16-year-old or my 18-year-old before she went to college was having a bad day, and so so we deal with that.
You got all girls?
I've got all girls, 3 daughters, and so we deal with that. But look, the interesting thing about being governor is there is no 2 days that are alike, and every day something pops up that you did not expect, and you have to deal with it. And it's something that I enjoy about the job. But a lot of days I travel. We did sell our residence in Rankin County and move into the governor's residence, and it's like anything else in life. It has pluses and it has minuses, because the governor's residence is really an apartment on the third floor of the governor's mansion.
Sure.
And the governor's mansion is a museum that has open to public tours. It is also an office building. I have employees of the Department of Finance and Administration, the Department of Archives and History, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Public Safety, all have offices in the governor's mansion, and which is all good and fine. It's just a little bit different to have that many people in the same place that you live. And but we've been blessed. We've got a great team, and a great team that's really dedicated to what's important. And what's important is just making Mississippi better every day. And so every day I get up and try to make Mississippi better. And some days that means I get up and I head to DeSoto County. Some days I get up and head south to the coast.
There's worse place you could be.
No, there are a lot worse places. I like to say that everybody's got to be somewhere, and if you got to be somewhere, this ain't a bad place to be. And so we got a lot of good things happening up here economically, and the population growth here is just unreal.
I have a question. So Ben and I both have young families, and you obviously have been in state government for 20 years or whatever, and you've raised your family in kind of that limelight. How have you managed getting to the soccer games and getting to the basketball games and handling, growing your three girls up during that? And we're not nearly in the limelight like you are, but it's hard for us to get to board meetings and things, so it's got to be difficult at your level.
I spoke to a group an hour ago, and similar question was asked, and here was my response. I may get in trouble over this, but I'm just going to tell you the truth.
All right.
I do two things in life. I work, and I watch my kids play sports.
That's right.
But not necessarily in that order. And so I'll be honest with you. I schedule around it, and as soon as the schedule comes out, I put it on my calendar, and I miss some, but I don't miss many. Yeah. If they're playing ball, I'm going to do everything I can. Ely and I have always had at least two playing at the same time, and so we often, like everyone else, divide and conquer. Yeah. So I don't see every game that every kid plays, but just today's a prime example. My daughter's playing high school soccer, and they play Germantown High School today, and I started in Tupelo this morning, and I'll be in DeSoto County all day, but I'm going to sneak across the state line and watch that game at 4:30, and then I'm going to come back to a football game tonight. So, but it's just you plan around it, and you have to prioritize. And for me, my dad started his small business in the early 1970s, and when I was growing up playing ball, he worked all the time, and he still works all the time. But if I was playing ball, he showed up, and I think that means a lot, and I think it means a lot to your particularly with daughters, your daddy-daughter relationship.
One of the daughters is a pretty good soccer player, I believe. I follow you on Facebook. I think she's a USA team or something like that.
My middle daughter is a very good soccer player. My youngest daughter played basketball, and they won a state championship. My middle daughter plays soccer, and then I tell everybody my 11-year-old is just BAD bad.
You got to watch the youngest one.
The youngest one, and she's got 5 or 6 years in between. And she was, by the way, a second grader during 2020 in the pandemic. Then not exactly a perfect time. So, but look, great kids. We're great kids, and I'm proud of them, and I do everything I can to show up every chance I get.
I always ask this question, and people may think it's a weird question, but has there been a moment where, with the offices that you've held, with everything else, that you are it's almost like an out-of-body experience, like I cannot believe I'm in this moment in this time, or just one of those kind of cool moments where, there's only 65 people that have ever experienced what I'm experiencing right now as the governor or whatever else. Is there any kind of story like that?
Well, look, the victories are sweet. We've had many legislative victories over the last 12 years that I really do think are going to have a huge difference for the future of our state. The educational reforms, it's funny, everybody now talks about how everybody was for every one of those bills that we passed. That's not exactly the way I remember it. There was some on the other side of the aisle that fought us pretty hard. But for me, it is I truly believe that success begets success. And to see our kids go from 49th to 21st, or from 50th to 23rd, it just gets me so excited about what we're going to do next. Where are we going to go next? Because to me, 50th wasn't good enough 10 years ago, and 23rd isn't good enough now. Yeah. And so let's keep driving to do even better. And honestly, to see the teamwork, campaigns are tough, and we're obviously in the middle of an election year. And the one thing that politicians get to do is in election years tell things that maybe aren't exactly the truth, and we have no shortage of that in the governor's race this year. But that's okay, and I have the utmost confidence in the people of this state that they know that what our record is, and they know that Mississippi has momentum, and that this is Mississippi's time, and it's for us to take advantage of it. And so, to a certain extent, the answer to your question is every morning's kind of a surreal experience, because who knows what's going to happen that day, and who knows what's going to pop up. Just natural disasters, for instance. Mm-hmm. I thought, because as you know, I thought when I ran in 2019 that I knew what I was getting into. I had run a state agency as the state treasurer. I had been in a very high-profile public policy position as lieutenant governor. So I thought I knew exactly what I would be doing every day as governor. And the truth is, I had no idea. No idea. Because that first year, going back to 1972, we had 4 federally declared disasters, was the most we'd ever had in one year. In my first 14 months, we had 14. And only one of those was the pandemic. And so, it's one of those deals where you just expect the unexpected, and you get up and you try to make progress every day, knowing you're not going to make enough progress any day. And that's kind of where we are. But look, I'm proud of Mississippi. I'm proud of what y'all are doing on the local level. And I think working together, we're going to continue to really be a shining star in this country.
Yes, sir. I know you're a busy guy. We'll kind of, I guess, end it there, but we appreciate you being on the podcast, Ben.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate the time. There's only so many hours in the day, so we certainly appreciate you giving us some time
He's
today.
got a football game to get back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to add?
Who's Germantown? Who are they playing?
My daughter goes to Jackson Prep.
Jackson
so it's a soccer game at 4:30, and then I'll be back down here. But I went to the Northwest football game last night. That was awesome. Had a great time. They got great facilities, and what they're doing.
We got several of the players from Hernando area that play for North. The kicker is Corey Usselton's son. I don't know if you.
I know he made 2 field goals to start the game yesterday. So no, look, life is good. Thank y'all very much for what y'all do, and anything we can do to be helpful, always reach out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that was Governor Tate Reeves joined us here on the Boardroom podcast. Chad, I guess that's the high water mark for us. I don't know if what's the next level up? I don't know.
Maybe we get Donald Trump next.
I don't know. I will reach out to him. I'll email him and see if he responds. We certainly enjoy y'all listening into the Boardroom podcast. We had Governor Tate Reeves with us here this time, running for his second term as Republican governor of the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. Now, what's election day? November
7th.
7th. So cast your vote for Tate Reeves.
Make sure you get there. If you can't get there on the 7th, make sure you get there before then.
That's right.
But that's all we've got for you this week. We'll have another exciting guest for you here next time. But for Ben Piper,
I'm Chad Wicker. Thank you.